Back in 2016, I heard Cincinnati Reds pitching coach Derek Johnson present on bullpens, and something he said really stood out to me. He said bullpens essentially boil down to two categories: over the rubber and over the plate. When you're over the rubber, you're focused on things internally. Think about velocity, mechanics, pitch design, time to the plate, pre-pitch routines, things like that. The other category is over the plate. When you're over the plate, you are focused on the execution of the pitch. So now we are externally focused. This could be things like in-zone, differential balls, simulated batters, anything where we can objectively track balls and strikes. And I really thought that this was so simple, but it made perfect sense. And oftentimes what you see players do is they try to focus on more than one thing at a time. They try to be over the rubber and over the plate at the same exact time. They might be trying to focus on the movement of a pitch. They're trying to design a slider, but they're also expecting themselves to execute it to the perfect location. And if the ball isn't located where they want it to be, then they judge themselves critically. They don't think it was a good pitch, even though the focus was supposed to be on the shape of the pitch. So a really clear takeaway that I want you guys to have is go into your bullpen understanding what your focus is going to be. Are you over the rubber or are you over the plate? Now, you can do both of these in the same bullpen session, but I wouldn't recommend doing them on the same pitch. So the way you could do this in the same bullpen session would be the first half, let's just say 10 to 15 pitches, you are over the rubber. You're focusing on something mechanically, or you're focusing on something pitch design related. You're trying to develop the movement of a pitch. The next 10 to 15, shift it to over the plate. So now we are trying to transfer the work on the movement of the pitch to now execution. So now maybe we're doing simulated batters for 10 to 15 pitches, or we're just purely focusing on OO in-zone type of pitches. It's very important, though, that we are separating the two. It can be easy to let them blend together, especially after going straight from an over the rubber to an over the plate. So what I do recommend is if you are going to do both in the same session like this, take a little bit of a break between the over the rubber and the over the plate session so you can go into it with a clear mind and a clear focus on what you're trying to improve. Another thing to consider is the time of the year. If it's early in the off season, you might be doing more over the rubber type of bullpens. You might be focusing on your mechanics. You might be designing a pitch. You might be trying to work on your velocity. As it gets later in the off season or in season specifically, you're going to have a lot of attention on over the plate. I would say this time of year, being that it's in season, your focus should probably be on average about 80% over the plate and 20% over the rubber. So it's not to say that you shouldn't ever be over the rubber in season. There's opportunities to work on the shape of a pitch. There's opportunities to work on your mechanics. But at the end of the day, it's about getting guys out right now with the stuff that you have. So I would recommend that a lot of your focus is on over the plate when you are in season, because we want to make sure we're staying externally focused and that we're not getting too internal and into our heads about what we're trying to feel mechanically, because that can throw off our execution of our pitches. Another thing to consider is you have to know what your low-hanging fruit is. Maybe you are a guy where your command is good, but you're getting hit around right now because your stuff just isn't good enough. So maybe you do need to have more of an over-the-rubber focus on designing a pitch. It comes down to knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are and what the low-hanging fruit is for you right now and what is the most important thing. Another thing to note is as a coach, we want to make sure that we are holding our players and ourselves accountable to whether we are over the rubber or over the plate. If we are over the rubber, let's just say we're trying to design a slider. We're focusing on the movement and the shape of that pitch. I can't also be judging that guy on the execution of the pitch. And as coaches, we oftentimes judge a pitch purely based on the location and the execution of it, which if it is an over the plate set, that's perfectly fine. That's what I want you to do. But if we are over the rubber, you and the player have agreed that you are over the rubber, you are focused on something mechanical, you are focused on a pitch shape, that is purely what you are going off of. That is purely what you are critiquing and judging on, is that aspect of the pitch. The second we start holding them accountable to the location when that wasn't the focus, now we're presenting confusion to the player and we are doing the opposite of what we want to accomplish. We're starting to get pulled in multiple different directions of trying to improve more than one thing at a time. And as a result, we don't get better at anything. We just get upset and frustrated. So it's important to make sure that the player understands that. But I think it's even more important as a coach that we are holding ourselves accountable to that, because players are used to being judged purely on the execution of the pitch. And if that is the focus, then that's what I want it to be. But if we are over the rubber, you have to make sure you're holding them accountable to that. If we do that, you're going to get better at whatever that focus is, and there's going to be clarity on what the attention is and what the player needs to improve. So in summary, bullpens boil down to two categories: over the rubber, over the plate. Early in the offseason, there's probably more of an over the rubber focus. In season, there's going to be more of an over the plate focus, but understand where the overlap is and how you can work on both, and making sure that you are holding each other accountable to what the focus is for that bullpen. Before I let you go, I want to let you know about a podcast that I started with Texas Rangers pitcher Josh Gessner. With Josh being a current player and myself being a current coach, it's the perfect blend for all coaches and players to learn about pitching development. It's called the Mound Visit Podcast. You can check it out on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube.